Well, welcome everybody. We are joined today by Joseph Lee, who is the General Manager of the Commerce Business Unit at Pivotree, which is a systems integrator, et cetera, in Toronto, Canada. I've known Joseph for 10 years now. So I knew him when he was at SAP and is it Miracle and VTEX and now at Pivotree, but he brings a whole long career of commerce experience to the table. So welcome, Joseph. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself. How did you end up at Pivotree? What is Pivotree doing that really attracted you to the company?
Yeah, so I started off as an entrepreneur, and I ran my own e-commerce system integration company. Shortly afterward, I joined ATG. Mm-hmm. So I joined the dark side and grew alongside of ATG from 100 million to 230 million in revenue. And we'd sold the company to Oracle for about $1 billion.
So I forgot you were at ATG too. That's
right. That's right. Then I moved over to Hybris. When I joined Hybris, it was a really small group. Our North American revenues were about 6.5 million. And we took that to about 115 million over 3 years and sold it to SAP for 1.5 billion. After that, I had a short stint at My Web Grocer, so in the grocery e-commerce space. And then after that, I joined Miracle. And Miracle obviously did very, very well. Growing to about $3.8 billion market cap, the last I heard. Then I joined VTEX as Chief Revenue Officer. When we started at VTEX, the total company market cap was about roughly 400 million. And about 1.5 years, 2 years later, we took it public for 4.7 billion. After that, I joined Pivotree as General Manager for Commerce. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, I'm a big fan of people on the SI side of the house having commerce experience. You have an extensive amount of it. So tell us, what was it about Pivotree that really attracted you?
So when I started out my career at ATG, I actually approached Pivotree. At that time, they were called Thinknostic. They're a really small 14-person company out of Ottawa. And I felt they were great people with great vision. And they were able to grow the company to what it is today, which is over 600 people, $102 million in revenue, and publicly listed on Toronto Stock Exchange. So big jump over the years. And yeah.
So what does Pivotree do? Tell us more about the different business units. You're in the commerce business. There's other business units as well, yeah?
So the overarching vision for Pivotree is to be the frictionless commerce provider. And we've really divided that up into 3 different sections. One is the commerce business unit, so implementing e-commerce platforms, a supply chain business unit that focuses on OMS and WMS, and a data business unit that is really about data as a service, which is kind of cool, as well as implementing other data solutions, PIM solutions, if you will.
I see.
The Fluent, the Stevos of the world, Informatica's of the world, et cetera.
Interesting. And so, and where do you guys focus your services? Who do you serve?
We typically serve companies that are 100 million and above in terms of total revenue. Within data and commerce, we tend to focus on 500 million and above, very large enterprises.
And B2B, B2C, both?
The majority of our business is B2B based, and I would say about 90% of our revenue comes from US-based businesses.
Interesting. Okay, awesome. And so here at this conference, Joseph, what are you hearing? What are you learning? What are you getting from the group? What kind of things are you really understanding people are worried about, thinking about, or opportunities? What are you hearing?
I think the elephant in the room has been about the economy.
Interesting.
Typically there are 4 key factors that define a recession. I think one of them is a lack of consumer confidence.
Right.
Another may be the stock market coming down a little bit. The third is really asset devaluation in forms of both residential and commercial real estate. And the last is really the foundational, some of the large financial institutions potentially not doing so well. And I think we've hit all 4 of them. Right.
Interesting.
And it's causing a lot of angst amongst CFOs. And Gartner did a recent study, and from that study, they came out with the fact that everyone knows they've got to cut their CapEx and OpEx spends. They really have to automate, focus on automation, which is why you hear all this generative AI stuff going on. And then B2B companies in particular really have to focus on automation because we have customers today that still use facsimile.
Yeah, right.
Right. And still have, interns that are keying into 4 or 5 different systems because they're not integrated. So.
Right. Yeah. Amazing. So you're hearing efficiency being a main driver of investment. Are you seeing people make investments the same way they have?
We have seen some slowness in terms of decision-making process, exactly for the things that I talked about,
Right.
which is the CFOs are feeling the angst in today's economy. And so they don't want to be spending, millions in CapEx up front. They really want to be able to splay that out over time.
So we did this debate recently. Remember, do you hunker down or do you double down?
Yeah.
And one of our we hold these debates, right, where we look at two sides of an issue, and we call them unwebinars. And we had the debate early this year, obviously with a lot of noise around potential for recession, concerns about the economy. Is it better to hunker down with what you have, right, double and really focus in on the investments you've already made? Or is it a time for companies to, in these times of uncertainty, to actually double down and make more investments and potentially leapfrog the competitors because they're all hunkering down? Any thoughts?
So my thought would be that you double down, and let me explain the reason why. I think that when you keep status quo, there's a lot of reasons for it. And even in B2B, there's a lot of technical debt that's out there where people have chosen large monolithic platforms. And over time, that consumes over 50% of your cost base in terms of IT. That's incredibly expensive. And so by doubling down, what I'm talking about is doing it in the right way, focusing on more composable technologies, technologies that are scalable, ultimately more flexible, that will much better future-proof these B2B companies.
So before we go, we have to ask, tell us about commerce as a service. I think this is an interesting kind of novel idea that you're not the first to have done this, but maybe you're doing it the right way. So tell us a little bit about commerce as a service by Pivotree.
So composable and mock technologies is very exciting. I think it's the talk of the town. It's been the talk of the town for a little while now, but it doesn't come without its problems, right? When you deal with composable vendors, maybe 7 or 8 of them, you're going to acquire a lot of them. It's not just a commerce platform. It's the payment solution provider. It's a tax provider. It's a content management solution, all of the above, right? It becomes quite difficult to deal with, right? Do you really want to sign 6 or 7 MSAs? Do you, from a procurement perspective, do you really want to have 6 or 7 different vendor relationships? And if every one of those vendors want to charge you 1 or 2% rev share, it gets really expensive really fast. Our belief and what we're seeing out in the market is that customers are looking for a partner that they can trust. They're looking for a partner that has their best interest in mind, and they're looking for a partner that sees the overarching picture of the business outcome that they're trying to achieve. So rather than focusing on the technology features and functions, what we really do is we speak to the C-suite with our CX strategy team, and we talk about what are the business outcomes they're trying to achieve. So although I just told you that we have commerce, data, and supply chain, we're really acting in unison to bring about business results the customer's looking for.
Excellent. Can you give us an example of
that? One of our customers, very, very large. When we started with them, they're about $2 million in online revenue. Today, they're $280 million in online revenue.
Okay.
They're in the outdoors type of market, outdoors clothing, outdoor sporting goods, etc. And they came to us and said, we have a serious search issue. And I'm like, what do you mean you have a search issue? They're like, the search doesn't work.
That's
serious. We got to get rid of our search engine, right?
Yeah.
So we dug a little bit. We did a discovery and we researched it. Turns out they didn't have a search engine issue. They had a data issue. And that's where when we've got a data division, we can go in and help them cleanse the data, make it right, recategorize, and make things searchable. So that's one example.
Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah.
And by the way, totally right about the data thing. Everybody comes to us. I get this from platforms to PIMS to you name it. Everybody thinks this is going to solve their problem. It's like, no, you got to fix your underlying data problem first.
Right.
That's what we're hearing a lot about here is data, right? And the issues underlying, the system itself can't solve it if the data isn't right. So, right. Well, good. Well, Joseph, thank you very much for joining us today. It's really, really awesome to meet you and talk to you about Pivotree. I'm excited to see what you guys are going to do with this new solution. So
thank you.
Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you
again.
Awesome.